Each and every year, on either the third or generally the fourth Sunday in the season of Easter, we have a Sunday that is called Shepherd Sunday. Today is such a day, so happy Shepherd Sunday. If you didn't know that you were coming for it, you do now. And we call it this because there's always a bunch of our scripture lessons on this day that declare God, the shepherd of his people, and specifically Jesus, to be the good shepherd of us all. Now, generally all this shepherd talk and sheep talk we hear is very comforting. It feels quite good. We get to say the 23rd Psalm for once outside of the context of a funeral. And it all conspires together to feel very soothing. In such a troubled world as ours, particularly that's the case, because most of life is not full of still waters that we get led beside. Because most of us have needs in our souls to be refreshed, but really, mostly, we feel a lot of depletion at times. And because most of us wish that our cup was overflowing with something other than just, busyness. But you know what I think of every Shepherd Sunday, each and every year, I think of song. Specifically a camp song, one that I learned in my childhood and sang as a youth going to camp. It was called I Just Want to Be a Sheep. I just want to be a sheep, ba ba. I just want to be a sheep, ba ba. Pray the Lord my soul to keep. I just want to be a sheep, ba ba. Now you'll have to thank me because that's now going to be in your head for the rest of the day. Second line, by the way, is I don't want to be a Pharisee because they're not fair, you see. I just want to be a sheep. By the way, David Charles, could we perhaps get the choir to start singing this as an anthem on Sundays? I don't see you, but I want you to be fair, you see. Okay, so anyway, so I would, sing this at camp each and every year. I was aspiring that the biggest thing that I could ever do with my life is be a sheep. And then I would go to high school, and there the last thing that anybody in the world wanted to be known as was a sheep. The term there, as it is most of the time, just used very derisively. Don't be a sheep, man. Think for yourself. Be different. Be your own person. Never be a sheep. But what about my song? What do I do with that? I was taught my whole life that I wanted to be God's sheep. But after going to a petting zoo or two and maybe watching Animal Planet or somewhere along the way, just looking at sheep, I understood why I didn't want to be a sheep. Because, sheep get shaved, they get slaughtered, they get led around by others, they get told what to do by dogs even. Sheep are notoriously dumb. They can't find their own way home. They can't defend themselves. So why in the world would anyone ever want to be a sheep? And yet this morning, Jesus calls you and me a part of his ragtag flock. So how do you feel about that, sheep? But here's the problem for all of us who would never want to just be a dumb, follow the leader sheep. The problem is that people are without question sheep. People are sheep. Sorry to break the news to you if you didn't know that, and that includes all of us here. Human history has proven few things more definitively than that people are sheep. Have you been to a high school recently? Look at how the kids dress. They don't need to have a uniform policy because all the kids already dress the same. Look at our commercials, how we're advertised to. I don't know if you remember those old Gap commercials that they used to do, and they had kids dancing, and the tagline was, everyone in khakis, or everyone in hoodies, or everyone in madras shorts, or whatever they were wearing back then. And those are pretty dated commercials, and yet they would totally still work. Because everybody has to wear the same thing these days, too, like those days, like every day throughout history. This is how advertising is, and it's done because it works on us sheep. Bud, the beer for the American working man. Nike, the swoosh must be on your attire. You're going to look even more pathetic as you lose your tennis match. Or for that matter, tennis shorts seems to be some sort of uniform these days, and yoga pants right along with them. Right guard, you'll never be kissed again, boys, and if you don't have your guard on. All of this stuff is saying, come on, sheep, buy, sheep, buy. Or look at our politics. We will totally buy into or discount what someone says merely because they have an R or a D beside their name. And that's our flock. We will support sometimes the dumbest, most hypocritical, nonsensical thing ever because of an elephant or donkey. Look at human history. People have proven since time immemorial that they will be led even to do atrocious things simply because the herd is shepherded into it. Even today, just this morning, I got up, and you know what I wanted to put on? Instead of this brown suit, I wanted to put on that seersucker jacket that's been looking at me all winter. And it looked great, and there it was, and I just wanted to put it on. And then I remembered, it's not Memorial Day yet. And somewhere somebody told me that I can't wear that until then. Now why? I have no idea, but as a sheep, I didn't get to wear my jacket. We think alike. We dress alike, we act alike, we are alike because, like it or not, people are sheep. And so that's the bad news, that we're sheep. We will be led. It's a simple reality. Bah, bah. But here's the open question. By whom will we be led? Or by what will we be led? Something will lead you. What principle or philosophy or worldview or person will govern your life? See how easy it is to talk like sheep? What will lead you through your life? For sheep always require a shepherd. And there are plenty of shepherds around to be found. But here's the thing. When you think about it, that might actually, and oddly enough, be the best news of all in all of this sheep business. Because needing a shepherd, you see, might just mean not that we're so dumb that we have to be led, but that we're smart enough to know that we cannot go it alone. You know why? Because we weren't created to. Sheep need someone to lead and to guide them. And into this vacuum of need, Jesus comes along and he says, I am the good shepherd. My sheep hear my voice, and they follow me. And so those of us who know him to be our shepherd do in fact hear that voice and follow. Now, to really understand what Jesus is getting at here, you have to understand how ancient sheepfolds worked. In fact, if you were listening closely, Jesus doesn't only say he's a good shepherd, but he says he's like the gate as well. And the reason for that is because in ancient times, all of the herds all the flocks would be herded together at night and kept in a common pen. And one shepherd would sleep at the entrance, the gate, to that flock. So those flocks were combined there to protect them. And so Jesus is saying, I am the gate. I'm the one protecting you from anything that would come to destroy you. He means that in their minds. They would see it literally as the shepherd taking that role. And in the morning, all of the shepherds would come together, and one by one, they would make their own individual cry, and their sheep would hear their voice, and the sheep that belonged to each shepherd, because of that cry, would make their way to him. My sheep hear my voice, and they come and follow me. So amazingly, the sheep weren't so dumb that they didn't know the voice of their shepherd calling to them. And they knew that when that call came, that it was safe for them to come and to follow. The sheep knew the right voice to follow. And by comparison, can we really say that humans are really always so smart? What voice are you listening to? What shepherd are you following? Because the world is full of shepherds, most of them leading you nowhere in particular, many of them leading you nowhere good. But there is a good shepherd, leading you to abundant life, leading you along a path that actually has an eternal destination. And Jesus says that he is that good shepherd, and that no one could ever snatch you away from his hand. And I don't know about you, but I base my entire life trusting that that is true. Because I feel myself at times led in so many different directions. I hear the call in our world of many different shepherds calling to me, and I'm sure you do too. So easy to hear the call of shepherd vice. Do what only soothes the pain or feels good or serves the short-term moment. To hear the call of shepherd greed. Don't think of anyone else but me, my needs, my wants, my desires must always reign supreme. To hear the call of shepherd expediency. Do whatever is easiest. Don't face hard decisions or make tough calls. Just kick the can down the road. Don't you hear the voice of a million shepherds calling us all to a million different destinations, each going nowhere eternal, but each calling so loudly that you almost believe that you have to answer their call. But then there comes another voice, calling out and calling into our deepest being, a voice that leads to a different life, abundant life, a voice that beckons us to a better destination, a voice that says that we will never be snatched away by lesser things. We hear the voice of our shepherd, the good shepherd, and what he is calling us to is home. If you were to go into my house right now, and I ask you to pick out what you would believe that we would regard as maybe the 2 or 3 most precious things in there, you might have a hard time finding them. If I narrowed it down to art, you still might have a hard time finding anything outside of the one splurge that Shelley and I did to have our girls painted, which is precious to us. But right behind that in our minds is something that you would find on the dresser in our bedroom. And it's an icon, and it's an icon that was written, as it said, by Shelley, my wife. And so it was painted by her. So we had this icon writing workshop at my former church, and all these people were learning how to do that over a week. It took a whole week to do this piece of art, and the teacher of that said, well, since you're hosting this, I'll give you, Eric, the class for free. And I was like, I ain't doing that. So anyway, Shelley, I'm bad with art. And Shelley did it, but it shocked me because Shelley's really bad with art too. She usually runs away from it. I'm sorry, it's just true. I mean, her stick figures are not good for nothing but kindling at times. It's sad. No, she actually is. But she wanted to do it. And it's a great spiritual exercise, writing an icon, because really what you're doing is you're writing your prayers. That's why they say writing it. And so the art is your prayer, okay? So this icon that she did over this week was done through a lot of prayer and all the rest, and what it is of Jesus the Good Shepherd. And Jesus is there with a lamb that he's holding across his shoulders. And when she did this, undoubtedly, she thought of all the ways that Jesus has been her shepherd. See, Shelley didn't grow up usually going to church. We lived in Memphis, and kind of the state religion there was Baptist, so when she did go, she'd go there. But she really became a Christian after we were dating in college. And boy, did she not know what she was signing up for. Because soon thereafter, she found herself making her way from the only place she ever knew in Memphis up to the cold tundra in Kansas City for me to go to seminary. And she cried many times because of that move. We were young, but more than that, it was a tough time in her life. She just lost her father when he was age 50. Just lost her grandmother. And when we went up there, we quickly knew that although we'd given up all of our own hopes and dreams that we thought of before, we knew pretty quickly that denomination that I grew up in was not where I was supposed to be. And so, part of our journey that has all these twists and turns, we felt led to go to the Episcopal Church. I felt led first, and I took Shelley, and the first Sunday, the church was on their summer schedule, but they didn't advertise it in any way, which is why we don't change ours, by the way. So we showed up 30 minutes late, and the bishop was there, and she had never seen anything that looked like this. She said, "Why is that guy dressed like the Pope? You know, kind of who does he think he is?" And all this sort of stuff. So that was Sunday 1. It didn't go too well. Sunday 2, we found this little Episcopal church, and Shelley sat in the car afterwards and cried because she said, "I know that I've been led home." Shelley also cried when we left Kansas City. I know you sound like you're crying all the time. But this shocked me because after 14 years, that place she had known to be a place of God. And we went to Florida, and then some years later, we're led here. And every day, when we're getting dressed, we look at Christ, the Good Shepherd. And Shelley, for her part, probably has been better at even getting that role of what it means to be a sheep in Jesus' flock. Because if you think about it, she hasn't had a whole lot of volition at times when it comes to where her life was going to take her. And yet she trusted in the one that was calling out to us and leading us to where we were to be, so that it's not just a life full of tears, despite what it sounded like, but full of rejoicing, because we know our Good Shepherd has us in his care. And looking at that day after day makes it easy for me to say, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, even there I will fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And that is why I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Ba, ba. Amen.